Welcome to the Journey of Now with myself, Claris.
And Nick.
And together we run our practice called the Journey of Now.
A blend of bespoke coaching, human design, and medicine for the soul.
So this season we're focused on a non-BS approach to spirituality, self-development, and expansion of the self in the most holistic and sustainable ways possible.
Helping you cultivate presence, step into your power, and dive into possibility. Welcome to your Journey of Now. Welcome back to the Journey of Now. Hopefully the sound is a little bit better, more intimate.
Yeah, we fixed up our office. We put some really nice curtains in. We got a rug. It looks like an office now. So.
Looks like an office. We're taking us. That being said, one of the most recent things that we actually had popped on the website was just understanding depression and looking at it from an Eastern and Western perspective. And funny enough, that conversation came up today, but with a very different perspective that it felt like it should be shared.
I wouldn't even say put the label of Eastern or Western. You know, this is from our own lived experience as people that have had a deep relationship with depression and have witnessed it and helped other people treat their depression. And it's so interesting because last week we had the discussion, or we had the podcast on anger as the protector. And so now we move on to depression. And if we were to personify depression, what would that be? So if anger is your depression, what would anger be? I mean, if anger is your protector, what is depression to you?
Depression, if I had to find words for it, would, in my experience, it's the repressed self. It is...
If you could just give it in terms of if anger is the protector, what would depression be? I mean, I'm just trying to not minimize it, but simplify it and personify it as what is it in our system? Because for me, if I can share mine, when I think of anger as the great equalizer. I mean, depression as the equalizer. And it's a common thread that every single human being will experience. And so it doesn't matter whether you are a billionaire or millionaire sitting on your golden throne, or you are in your cave in the Himalayas, or you are a mother of 2, 3, 4, 5, or you are someone else working a 9 to 5. We have all experienced depression in our lives. So I think for me, depression is like the great equalizer. It shows us our human experience, how human we are, but it's also the wake-up call, because it's like the thing that tells you you're not living what you should be living, or what is happening in your space that you're Yeah.
And the thing is with, just touching a little bit on how it's normally treated, it's, it's such a vague approach. I mean, we can look at SSRIs and, different ways to inhibit certain chemicals or to allow expression of certain aspects of the brain. And I mean, there's merit to that, but honestly, just being a depressed person and speaking directly from that space and having navigated that in my own way.
Can we rephrase that you are a person that is more inclined to depression? You are not a depressed person.
There we go. Agreed. I know I'm not a depressed person anymore. Mm-hmm. I am a person first that experiences this from time to time. It's not me. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest freeing moments for me was when I recognized that this is not who I am. This is an experience that I'm undergoing. And it's not just the experience. It is also, like you said, it is shining light and showing you something about yourself, about your environment, about your reality, about possibly your perspective and experience. And what I found was what really resonated from, I suppose, the Eastern or the more spiritual standpoint, which was it highlighted the disconnect I had with myself and I had with life itself. And it was really that gap between the human and the being. That gap was the reason why I was depressed, because those two things were not speaking to one another.
Yeah.
They were compartmentalized. And sometimes this is just, he's speaking rather freely here, but the idea is, unless you have really gone and walked through it and maybe found words and found the steps to navigate it, not band-aid it, not beat it, not run away from it,
and not look to other people to save you, because no one can help you walk this path. I mean,
Yes.
they can only take you to a certain space, but after that, this is your path. And I know within our own relationship, I trust you with my whole life, and I know that you do too. And I feel like we've also been to a very deep level of intimacy within each other. But even with that, I know I can only take you so far, in terms of I can only help you so much with your walk with depression. And even vice versa. There are things that there's only space for one.
Yeah.
And until you develop that like trust and strength within yourself, which is like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to do this. Like, the only way through it is through it. Like, you can only run away from yourself for so long. I found with a lot of people who've experienced depression, we try to grab onto anything that we can hold on to, whether it is the people around us and like desperately clawing to people for help.
Exactly.
But people don't know how to help you. So they treat you like you're delicate. They treat you like you're broken. And then you go to a broken medical space where they don't even know how to treat depression for what it truly is. Okay? I think there are degrees of this. And yes, medication does have its place. I'm not discounting that. But, and you know, the space where you choose to walk with depression as a wake-up call is that is another path, and it takes a lot of courage, but it also takes a lot of courage to go and ask for medication and help. And yes, it can be there to like help you get to a certain point, but to stay on it for very long periods of time
it's just like you're changing a band-aid the whole time.
Exactly.
You're actually not dealing with what is arising.
Because I find with medication, it can take it from like this emergency response where it's like, I am wanting to unalive myself, or I'm going to hurt other people or myself because of no. Medication can help you get from that space to a point where it's like, oh,
Fully
okay,
agree. Yes.
that's actually not what I was wanting to do. I was just so desperate for someone to hear me that I was willing to do anything. And understandably so. But and it may take some time for you to actually get to what it is that is triggering this within you. But if you stay on it for too long, and I've seen it within my own family, you know, I've got a family member that's been on anti-depressants, sleeping tablets, all of these things for what? How many years, Nick? It's been like what? Most of my life I've seen it on antidepressants. And depression is, you know, you can be disconnected and you can be detached, okay? You can experience things like that. But when you let it stay for too long and you plug yourself out of your life force,
yeah,
then it becomes depression. Because...
But then also, like, and this is the thing, this is what got me on the next thing I've been writing and mulling over, which is existential depression.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's this thing where, you know, individuals have, I suppose the words have come into play where they call this experience the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Where when depression has been this unseen guest,
Mm-hmm.
that you realize they're there, but you're choosing to rather stand in the other room and not have a conversation, not connect with them, not address the stranger in your home. We talked about having like personifying the, you know, each and every one of these experiences. You're not willing to meet that. And if you look at depression as just an unmet part of yourself, an unmet truth that you are not willing to look at, you're basically wanting to negate your accountability and responsibility for your own well-being.
What is the quote about we are responsible for not just ourselves, but everyone around us and everything around us that happens? And sometimes the whole concept of that becomes too big for people to hold.
Totally.
And I think that's also why depression comes in, because you don't know what to do with all of these things.
It's not just a little thing, and no one is playing it down. It may feel boundless and formless, but it is taking up all this space. And one of the tools is really just personifying it to contain it and conceptualize it, because then it doesn't come across as this, infinite mass that you are experiencing inside yourself and that has been projected into your actions and your thoughts and your reality.
I've heard people describe it as this dark, sticky shadow that feels like it takes over their whole lives and their minds, and it comes with sleepiness and also the feeling of never doing enoughness and never feeling enough, but never having the energy to do it, but also avoiding all the things you need to do to get out of it. And
but also listen to the story behind that. That is such a well-scripted story. At what point is there a protagonist that can step in, being you, step in and be like, I'm going to change this. I'm going to actually just close that chapter or close this book, get out a new book, grab a pen and paper and start writing. Well, maybe at once upon a time it was this black mass, but it became a person.
It's not a monster.
It's not.
And the thing is, it has many names for it. You can put a different name in front of depression and it can change the whole feel of it.
Then we're labeling as well.
I'm just saying, with my walk and experience of depression, my postpartum depression after the kids were born felt very different to existential depression or just general feeling the weight of it all, if that makes sense. And with my postpartum, it brought me to my knees. There were points where I felt so unhinged and just so angry and disconnected, but I had to sit with it. If you're breastfeeding, there's only so much you can do or take or anything. And that was my own choice not to take anything. But I also knew that you were holding down the fort to a degree. While I could go in. And the only way I got out of that was actually sitting deeply with my depression and not avoiding it. Because it's like you said, it's if you close your eyes and there's someone in the room with you, does that make them go away? No, you've just closed your eyes.
When you walk into the other room, they're still in your house.
Exactly.
They're still taking up space. And, I suppose there's so many ways that you can personify this and try and create logic around it. But would you allow someone to an uninvited guest in your house, even an invited guest in your house, they literally strip naked and lie stark naked all over your couch, and you're just allowing them to laze there, and they can walk into the kitchen, and everyone else has to tiptoe around it. And they will just grab whatever they want out the fridge, grab some snacks, put whatever they want on TV. It can be blaring loud. And the more comfortable they get, the more space they start taking up.
Oh my God, no! I'm just thinking of someone's naked butt on my white couch.
But that's the thing. That's what is not addressed.
Or even people's feet on my couch.
Yes, but having a person become very comfortable.
No.
And so what happens is the scale inverts. You were really big, and now the depression was rather small. It was there. It was noticeable, but as you have become more of a recluse, it's been able to take up more space because you've started to take up less space.
But the other thing with depression, it's exactly because we resist that level of darkness and having to take up space within ourselves that we miss the depths of how beautiful and how brilliant and how creative and the depth of the joy that you can experience at the core of it is. And depression is just, it's the opposite end of what you can experience. We are dualistic beings that live in the spectrums of both. And if you're not going to open yourself to experience both, then you're dead. You're living a life that is dead and calling it a life. That is it. If you look at a heartbeat, look at the ups and the downs of it. Okay? When there's nothing going on, you flatlined. When you are experiencing all of it,
exactly,
that is what it means to be a human being. And our journey and our walk here in life is to learn how to navigate it and to teach others how to navigate it. And you hold others' hands when they're walking it and they have no idea what to do.
So you move from a human being to being human.
With some fucking compassion in your heart, instead of treating people like they are broken. They are people who are going through shit.
And everyone is going through shit.
Exactly.
And it's not invalidating anyone's shit. It's just a lot of people, and it's like that the metaphor that you have with, clean your own windows, your dirty windows.
Wash your windows.
Go wash your windows. And it is that, because people are unwilling to just clean their windows in their home and really look out and be like, wow, reality is much, much more, inviting and experiential. There's more possibility. There's more love. There's a lot more available to me versus the lens that I have been viewing life through. I just want to say this, and it's so funny that, you talked about, the ups and downs of the heartbeat, and it's something that was shared with me recently, and it's the purpose of the journey is growth, and in order for anything to grow, something else has to die. And when you really deepen that understanding and maybe dive into an emotional context, fear needs to die so that faith can grow.
So you would even, to speak to that in a deeper way, depression is just the lack of control and the realization of how much you actually need to surrender so you can gain yourself. To gain yourself, you need to lose yourself. To gain your mind, you need to lose your mind.
It is.
And it genuinely is that.
There is a give and a take. And it's not, and using those words very loosely, but there is some form of exchange.
For sure.
How are you given the world when your hands are already full?
We'll probably do a part 2 in this because Nick has a session now. But I wanted to just say this quickly. Thomas More wrote a book called The Dark Night of the Soul. And that was probably one of the most insightful books that I've read on depression, from a soul perspective and a more spiritual perspective. And he says here that during the dark night, there is no choice but to surrender control and to give in to the unknowing and stop and listen to whatever signals of wisdom might come along. It is a time of enforced retreat and perhaps unwilling withdrawal. And the dark night is more than a learning experience. It is a profound initiation into a realm that nothing in the culture so preoccupied with external concerns and material success prepares you for. And what he continues to say is that is the point of this night sea journey, to be born into yourself. There, you are an amniotic fluid, an alchemical substance once again. You are journeying toward your own life. You are preparing for your fate. The promise is exhilarating, but the dangers are extreme, and you have to avoid things being just one of the crowd and instead take the chance of being born an individual. I really love that perspective. When you think about the visual of being a baby inside the womb and growing, it's dark. Even being a seed in the soil, it is dark and you have no idea. And I think that is what the experience of depression is equated to. But that's where the trust and the surrender and knowing that you will grow and you will see.
What if you are just already growing? And by just realizing that you are forever changing, that you are not static in nature. depression and repression. We've heard like these plays on words, repressing oneself. We've heard of Jim Carrey when he talks about deep rest is needed.
But
In order to grow. Do you see a seed running around in the soil? No. They are there, and they are trusting, and they are in the dark. They are resting. They are giving themselves that space to nurture, to allow their cells to expand and express their potential. And they are not fixated on the when
and the results
or the how
Yeah.
or the outcome. They are just aligned with the process. And honestly, the more that, and I believe this would probably be true for you, the more that you have stepped into presence,
Mm-hmm.
present with intention, being in the now, be in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
there isn't space for anxiety and stress and depression. You're there, and
Yeah.
maybe that veil comes in when you're not in that flow. But that's when you catch yourself and you're just like, well, welcome. What are you shining? What are you showing? Oh my goodness, I'm actually like a little bit disconnected here. Maybe I need to just slow down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm becoming a busy mess again.
Look at the society we've grown up in. Okay, everything you have to be busy. Everything is result driven, and the lack of boundaries people have within themselves, where we feel the need to share everything and have everyone be a part of everything. Like, this is such a deeply, deeply intimate space. And that is why I said there's only room for one in this space. And you have to honor it so that you can move through it. And then depression becomes the seed of something that is really beautiful. And you know that once you've walked it and you've come through it, that there's nothing that you cannot do.
Yes.
Because you've gone through the death of a version of yourself, and you've come out as the next version of yourself. And as
that principle holds true of, your growth was attained through giving up that old version of yourself, that repressed version.
The fear has to die.
That fear has to go. And the irony of the whole thing is you're fearing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're fearing the life that you could live.
Yeah.
You are fearing the possibility that resides within you and within every single choice. So with that being said, maybe there isn't a 10-step approach on this podcast today, but I hope that there was a thought, a nugget, an idea that you are able to take with you on your journey that you are experiencing right now. And maybe it's not depression, maybe it's just a need of deep rest and you're burnt out, or maybe this hits home directly. But wherever you are, just know that you are not alone. You are exactly where you need to be, and that might sound really cold.
Trust that this is a part of it, and that you're not going to die. Even if your mind is telling you you're going to die. Even if your mind is telling you you cannot breathe, you can breathe. This is a part of you. It's not bigger than you.
Trust your process.
Have a good week. Sending you love.
Until next time.